So I think it goes without saying that I'm a fan of The Amazing Spider-Man, but does its sequel measure up to its spectacular predecessor? I think it kinda does. It's great to be Spider-Man. For Peter Parker, there's no feeling quite like swinging between skyscrapers, embracing being the hero, and spending time with Gwen Stacy. But being Spider-Man comes at a price. Only he can protect his fellow New Yorkers from the formidable villains that threaten the city. With the emergence of Electro, Peter must confront a foe much more powerful than he. But meanwhile, his old friend Harry Osborn returns seeking a cure to a terminal disease that has afflicted his family that could lead him to desperate measures. Ultimately, all paths lead straight to the web slinger, as Peter must grapple with greater challenges than he has ever faced before. So yeah, the first Amazing Spider-Man was a film I liked a hell of a lot. I love what Marc Webb has done with the approach to the material of Spider-Man. I love the quality of the characters, the quality of the emotion, the depth, the dimension, the tone, the feel. Everything he does appeals to me on such a strong level. And I love that he has carried on all those qualities that I loved about the first film into this sequel. But there are a few detriments to this film. I will say that first off because every time you have a superhero film where there's a lot of characters in there and they're building up a lot of villains, you can see there's going to be a lot of different things going on in the film that you get a little worried. It's going to turn into a bit of a cluster. Might be a little overbloated, a little too cluttered. And I think the filmmakers kind of realized that as the filmmaking process went on, because they first announced that they were cutting all the scenes involving Mary Jane Watson from the film, so none of those are there. And you'll notice after seeing the film that a number of the little scenes and whatnot, little things from some of the trailers, some of the previews, are not in this cut of the film. So I think maybe it was a little running time issue, but I think they kind of realized that it had a lot of things going on, a lot of different storylines, a lot of different characters they really had to balance out and trim down and focus on. That really kind of started trimming down things, cutting little things out here and there, which don't affect the overall coherency of the story. But it feels like to me, as I was watching the film, it felt like someone trying to balance something extremely heavy on their shoulders in a very gingerly type of way. That they're not doing it perfectly. There's a lot of weight there, a big burden of this film to hold on someone's shoulders, and they're doing it as best as they possibly could. But it wasn't perfect. That there was, like I said, there's a lot of different storylines with each one of these characters. Whether it's Electro, whether it's Harry Osborn, or it's Peter and Gwen, and anything else going on in the film, they all have their own storylines going on in the film, so the film has to keep it all balanced as best as possible, which means kind of trimming every single storyline down to a little bit less than it possibly could have been if the film was a little leaner overall. But I thought everything was very well written. It all kind of flowed in a certain way, that not all the storylines kind of flow in together, interconnect. Early on, they kind of do that a little closer towards the third act of the film, where all the characters are technically actually converging, even though all their storylines don't really have a lot to going on with one another. But by far, the strongest storyline in the whole film was definitely between Peter and Gwen. They're going through a little bit of turbulence, a little emotional struggles in the film, because there's a lot of fallout with Peter for the promise he made to Captain Stacy at the end of the first film, and he's seeing his ghost all over the place, just seeing him as kind of this haunting specter of guilt that he's breaking that promise. He's bringing Gwen in close to him, but he's also struggling with that. Can he let her go and keep her out of harm's way? Can he fight his own emotions and everything? And just the fact that Emma Stone and Andrew Garfield are such tremendously fantastic, wonderfully dimensional talents. They bring such a charming, endearing quality to both of these characters, and they're just They are the substantive core and heart of both of these films, and this film absolutely, positively, they do such a wonderful job. They never make this a mushy romance. They make it very heartwarming and endearing to an audience. There's just so much sweetness that Emma Stone brings to Gwen Stacy, and I think Andrew Garfield is just a pitch-perfect Peter Parker for my taste. He just brings so much that visceral depth of emotion and the charm and the wit and the charisma and everything that I just wanted to have from Peter Parker and Spider-Man for the longest time. But this film is filled with so many tremendous acting talents. It's just overflowing with talent. And it's keeping in such great check by Marc Webb. But Dane DeHaan is absolutely a fantastic performance in this film as Harry Osborn. He has such a great range of emotion, and he has so much charisma on screen that he just, every little scene he gets, whatever range of emotion that he's performing in any scene, it's just so strong. It just grips the audience. It just really it just pulls you further into the film and just makes you invested in anything that he is doing, what he's going through in the film. It never makes him seem like an outright villain until later on in the film. He's just struggling to survive this disease that has killed his father, and he's trying to find the right ways, and he's going about it all the wrong ways. And Jamie Foxx does a great job as Electro. I thought he was damn good in this film. That he starts off as that kind of meek, nerdy type of outsider type of guy, and he becomes such a great villain. I think this film has some wickedly damn good villains in it. I thought Electro was damn good. There's such a great spectacular quality to realizing this character on screen and doing so many inventive, original type of things with such an electrically based villain and everything. They used their imaginations in this film in such great ways. I feel everyone gave a really damn good performance in this film. I was very much impressed with every single acting talent here. And I think Marc Webb does a great job directing all the dramatic stuff, all the action as well. But I like that he focuses so much on character, so much on emotion. That he does such a superb job directing the drama of the film. But there is so much of that wit, so much of that great Spider-Man charisma and everything in the film, added into all the great, wonderful action sequences this film has to offer, because you got a much more large-scale threat like Electro, who could be a threat to the whole city, shutting it all down, doing all these things. He's a much more powerful enemy than we had with the Lizard, so he becomes a much larger scale threat, and everything becomes a much larger scale action sequence, much more scope to everything. When you see him going up against the cops, going up against Spider-Man, taking on the whole city, it just becomes a much more spectacular type of villain to behold in the film in a visual sense and a much more of a threatening sense. And also you do end up getting a little bit of Green Goblin near the end there, which I think, yeah, you had that old Power Rangers type of suit that you had Willem Dafoe in the first Spider-Man film from Sam Raimi. This one goes much more in a much more organic type of route, and I really liked that you could see the face of the actor as the Goblin, really kind of selling things a lot more in that sense. But I think the action in this film really does satisfy in a great, great, great way. There's a lot of action, but it never overshadows the characters or the storylines. And like I said, there are quite a few storylines. You got the stuff going on with Harry Osborn, trying to find a cure for the disease that is genetic, that has killed his father, and now it's affecting him. You got Gwen and Peter going through their romantic troubles. You got Electro's story in there. You got a little bit of Aunt May kind of, and the Richard Parker type of stuff with Peter Parker's father and his mother and everything, trying to find out what happened to them. So there's a lot of things going on in the film, but because I think the director and the filmmakers and everything really saw they had a lot of going on, they really tried to trim it down and focus it as best they could without shortchanging one story or the other. But like I said, you could probably really expand a lot of these scenes, get a little bit more substance, a little bit more in-depth about certain characters, because it feels like there's a lot more you could do with them. But if you did, it would probably be a 3-hour long film, and it would feel rather unbalanced, a little bit overbloated. And so I think they did the best they could with what they had to work with here. And I will say that someone about a week and a half ago carelessly posted a spoiler, probably the biggest spoiler of the whole film, which I won't reveal to you, but I went in the film knowing that this was gonna happen, and even knowing that Marc Webb's direction in the whole sequence that led up to this was so spectacularly suspenseful and tense and just so wrapped up in emotion that it still had me at the edge of my seat, clutching my hands, just hoping for the best of what happened here. And it just a credit to the quality of his direction and his filmmaking skills that even having something spoiled for me, it still was immensely effective to me. But I will not spoil that. If you see the film, you probably can figure out what it is I'm referring to. But you also have little things that are probably a little misleading in some of the trailers. They have Rhino in the film, but he is very minimal. He bookends the film, I'll say that. So you're not going to see a whole lot of Rhino in the film from Paul Giamatti. But he's there, and it didn't bother me at all, because I felt like if they had yet another villain storyline flowing through the whole film, it definitely would have gotten overbloated and overblown and all that kind of stuff. I know a lot of people have been putting a lot of praise towards Hans Zimmer's score in the film, which I think is very well deserved. But I was a big fan of James Horner's score for the first film. I thought it had a lot of great triumphant feel to it. I thought it fit the film absolutely perfectly. And I kind of missed some of the little cues that he had at the first film, because Hans Zimmer creates a lot of new themes and everything that are really damn good stuff. He does a lot of great work in this film. But I kind of miss a little bit of the James Horner type of stuff. But this is still a great, equally good score from Hans Zimmer, who's one of the best composers out today. And overall, I really like The Amazing Spider-Man 2. When that last scene in the film hit, I had a big smile on my face. I was very satisfied. I liked how this film ended in a lot of ways. Because with the first film, you had that big climax, and then they kind of went on for a few minutes longer and developed the characters that extra step forward, and they did that the same type of way in this film, and I like that quality a lot. That gives you a little something extra beyond just the action and the spectacle. It reminds you that it is about the characters, and it is going to progress those characters to the next step where they can jump off into the next film and do some really spectacular stuff from there. I did see a spoiler-free review or two before I went to see the film, so maybe that set my expectations in the right place. But I came out liking this film a hell of a lot more than a lot of people are saying. I just liked it a lot. I give it thumbs up. I enjoyed it a great deal. I don't think it's quite as good as the first film because there is so much storyline, so much content going on in this film that doesn't have as much of a time and luxury to go into them as deeply as the first film did with what it had to work with. But it does a lot better job than a lot of other films do with this much kind of content. And I give a lot of praise to the film on that level, that it realized there was a lot of stuff going on. They decided to trim some stuff back and try to focus it as best they could. But it's not as great as it possibly could have been. Like I said, not perfect, but I really liked it a lot. I was very satisfied. Great action sequences. Again, great acting, great substance with the characters, good emotion. I thought there was a lot of good stuff. I think this holds together very well. Some of our people don't agree with that kind of sentiment, but I think this film will be enjoyed by a lot of people. I think it will entertain you a hell of a lot. I like the characters. I love the villains. I think it did right things in a lot of different places. Amazing Spider-Man 2 gets my recommendation wholeheartedly. I would say definitely go out and check it out. And later on this month, you'll definitely see Godzilla and X-Men Days of Future Past. Reviews from those films. And if you saw Amazing Spider-Man 2, what did you think about it? Post some comments below. What's your favorite Spider-Man movie? What is your favorite Spider-Man comic book storyline? What's your favorite Spider-Man villains? I think there are a lot of great villains in Spider-Man's Rogues Gallery. One of the best in all comics history and everything. So post some comments below. Start up some discussion about the Web Slinger. What do you think is spectacular or amazing? And what about the man, your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man? So I'm going to cut out here so you can enjoy more Spider-Man in the near future. And I'll be back with future reviews for Godzilla and X-Men Days of Future Past. Take care. Bye-bye.